And friendimacy, the closest relationship we have, friendship intimacy, is where two people both feel seen in a safe and satisfying way. I did not feel that. And I am not alone. When I asked over 6,000 people in the last couple of years, how fulfilling are your friendships on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most satisfying, how close do you feel with your friends? Think about that number for a second. On any of my surveys, anywhere between 50 to 70% of us score a 5 or below. We are not just leaning toward dissatisfaction with our closeness of our relationships. We are 2 to 4 times more likely to put a 1 or a 2 than we are to say we're fulfilled with a 9 or a 10. This is a lot of relationship dissatisfaction. We are hungry for being close to each other. And contrary to popular advice, when this loneliness happens, the answer is not, go meet more people, join a club, make new friends. The answer is actually learn how to develop better friendships. The vast majority of us have never taken a class on how to build relationships. And so I went and I compiled, like when you look at all the social scientists and what they're studying, when they look at what bonds any two people, who we confide in, what makes two people best friends, what makes for a healthy marriage, what builds trust, 3 common denominators emerge. And it's like a formula. You have to have all 3. You can't just have 2 of them. And so I want to unpack all 3 of these, and I use what I call a friendimacy triangle so we can see how they fit together. And at the beginning of all of our relationships, the first requirement is the letter P, and that is positivity. Because how many of you woke up this morning and thought, I wish I just had a few more cranky, whining, manipulative people in my life that made me feel like I was never doing enough? When we want friendship, we want the reward, we want joy, we want to feel good, this comes from smiles and laughter and kindness and acts of service and empathy and validation, gratitude, affirmation, all those things that leave us feeling accepted. And let's be clear, this does not mean we have to be Pollyanna. We still get to cry on each other's shoulders, and we still get to vent and complain, but social science is telling us that every relationship to stay healthy has to have a ratio of 5 positive interactions for every negative interaction. So that means for every withdrawal you're making from your whining and complaining, you have to be making 5 deposits of joy and reward. Requirement for all healthy relationships. The second requirement, the letter C, is consistency. Because we've all met people we enjoy and are positive and had fun being around. But if we never saw them again, that wasn't a friendship. Consistency is the hours logged. It's the history we build. It's the time we spend together. This is where we make rituals and we create patterns. We increase our interactions. This is where we get to know each other. This is actually, as we put consistent time in together, this is actually how we build we start knowing what consistent behavior looks like. This is where trust happens, this one. When we say, I want to trust somebody, we don't ever want to feel like we're walking on eggshells, meaning we don't know how to predict how you're going to respond. We feel safe when we can predict, and we can predict by we have create a pattern and we spend more time with each other. This is actually the one that made friendship feel automatic when we were kids because school was consistent. And this is the one we still end up building relationships at work, at school, at church, and associations because our consistency is automatic. You wouldn't pick those people to be your friends if you had a lineup of 20 other options. You're friends with them because you have consistency with them, and you end up building these other 2 components in. A lot of us have relationships that we enjoy, the positivity, and that we do things on a regular basis. But without the third requirement, it's not a healthy friendship. And the third requirement is vulnerability. Vulnerability is where we share, where we reveal, where we let people in and let more of us be seen. I teach 5 different types of vulnerability in my book, but suffice it to say, it's not just sharing the skeletons in your closet, the insecurities and the shame. It's also talking about what's going well and your successes and risk bragging to your friends. It's also sharing our history, our dreams. It's being able to articulate what we're feeling and ask for what we need from somebody else. That is tremendous vulnerability. Because at the end of the day, for us, we want to feel loved, and we only feel loved if we feel known, and we can only feel known if we actually share ourselves. Do these 3 make sense? These are the basis of every single relationship. You have never built a healthy relationship without these 3 things. And I could unpack this triangle for days, literally, but we are on a deadline. So the part that's germane to our conversation today is how we can know so many people and yet still feel so lonely. And that is because every relationship starts on the bottom, on our foundation of positivity. No matter how much you think you like somebody or how much you want to be your best friend with them, they all start on the bottom of the triangle. And then our relationships develop as we incrementally increase our consistency and our vulnerability. In other words, the more time we spend, the more we get to know somebody. And so therefore, some of our relationships will move all the way to the top of the triangle, but they go up bit by bit, so you can see how the vast majority of our relationships will be all up and down this triangle. For the ones at the top, that is the one that I have found that when we describe being lonely, it is for lack of having built this top of our triangle. When we are lonely, it is not because we need to add more people to the triangle. While some of us may be in that situation, the most of us, when we're lonely, it is not for needing to add more people. It's for actually needing to move some people up. Because remember, friendship is not something we discover. So I can't sit there and say, oh, I have an opening at the top of my triangle. Let me put out a little job hiring sign and audition you. And oh, you have 2 kids. I only have 3. I'm like, oh, da, da, da. And we play all these games. And like, oh, do a little tap dance. Oh, she was funny. I like her. Yeah, we're going to be best friends. We don't get to put people in there based on whether we like them. This triangle is not about how much we like somebody. This triangle is about how much we practice the 3 requirements of friendship with somebody. And the only way we get somebody to the top of this triangle is by developing those relationships, by practicing these 3 things. So that by the time somebody's at the top of the triangle, we have been vulnerable. We have shown ourselves. We have shared our feelings and shared our stories. We have done consistency. We have built history, and hopefully we've even survived some life changes together so that we have continued to find new ways of being together. And we have increased our positivity so that we know how to love each other in meaningful ways for each other. That's the top of the triangle, and that's our goal, because when we can do that, when we have high vulnerability, then we feel seen. When we have high consistency, we feel safe, and when we have high positivity, it feels satisfying. And that's what we all want. And this is what we're craving, and this is what our bodies are literally dying without. We want to keep repeating this cycle. These are the things we're being called to practice. These are muscles that can be developed.